Third time's the charm. The Hotwire is an extremely cheap, small, liner lock folding knife with a spring assist and a slightly confusing name from Kershaw. Let's go on ahead and jump into the warm, the hot, the lukewarm, and the bits that just left me out in the cold. Alright, let's go ahead and start with the warm. Design-wise, this is a very cheap sort of gentleman's folder. It's only $9 and, well, fuck. Alright, for the warm. This is a very cheap, only $9 sort of gentleman's folder. It's got really nice Art Deco detailing on the scales of the knife, and the blade itself is also very reserved, and it's just one thing, it's a slicer. It doesn't carry any of these Tonto or tactical aspirations that a lot of knives sold today seem to have. Additionally, the details are also pretty well managed too. The pocket clip is very thin and svelte, and not this weird spoony thing that's some of the more tactical knives have today, and the flipper tab, while it's not the smallest flipper tab in the world, it's big enough to do its job, and it's also well reserved. And the screws are well proportioned and everything. The warranty of this is pretty freaking awesome. You can just send it in to them and they will replace it if it has manufacturing defects, sharpen it for free, and if the speed safe bar is broken, they will also replace that for free. That's going to come in pretty important later. The action is speed safe, which is, well, it's okay, I guess. It'll get the blade out of the handle and reliably, but it tends to break, like it has in this instance, at least in my experience, but we'll touch on that later. But the point of the speed safe is to allow for a positive action without spending way too much money paying people to fine-tune the action of each individual knife. The build quality is the final good bit of this design. The blade came nicely centered, and the scales match up with the liners pretty well, and there are no outward shatter marks or burrs on anything. I mean, sure, there's going to be some bits of the mold and the inside of the scales, but it's the inside of the scales. You're never seeing that unless you're taking the knife apart, and I think you can live with that, you know? Especially at a $10 knife. Alright, let's go ahead and... Fuck. Now, what's really hot about this blade are two things. The blade shape and the carryability. For the blade shape, it's got this very, very thin behind the edge profile, and not quite flat ground, but honestly it's pretty close to its setup, so that it's got very little in the way of baking to cut, and especially given how frighteningly sharp it came from the factory, this is a superb slicer. And next is the carryability. This knife just disappears in your pocket. It's amazing. The thin pocket clip just slides to the back of your pocket, out of the way of everything else, and along with the kind of wedge-like profile here, where it just kind of gets out of the way of almost everything in the knife. Your hand almost gets out of the way of almost everything in the way of the knife, while rooting around in your pocket for keys, wallets, condoms, drug money, whatever you've got. And that's also helped along by the pretty thin profile and the in the pretty darn small size. Now for the bit... Shit. Hold on a second. Now for the bit sign that are just lukewarm for me. First off, the FRN scales feel really cheap and papery for me, kind of like it's almost made out of paper mache, but they'll hold up a lot better than paper mache would, and again, this is a cheap knife. And the texturing makes sure that I really don't lose my grip on this knife unless I'm legitimately trying to lose my grip on it somehow, which means I'm being dumb. Which, given who I am, it's kind of often. The ergonomics are on the bad side of mediocre, just barely. The knife wants you to hold it in a very particular way, with the bottom of the handle kind of in the crook of your index finger like this, and your thumb riding on the top, and even then the jumping kind of cuts into your index finger a good bit. If you try and hold it in any other way, except for maybe this way, which isn't really that secure, and even my pretty small hands kind of barely have any purchase on the knife, it's not very comfortable. And that's going to go double for somebody with larger hands than I have, which is 75% of the population, because for some reason I have the hands of a small goblin. There is no lock bar cut out, meaning that if you're trying to just dig in from the side and pop out the lock bar, it's not going to be a very comfortable experience. However, the lock bar is actually above the scales, meaning that if you just kind of swoop in from here and just ride your thumb along the top, it's very comfortable to unlock with no lock stick whatsoever, which is another thing in its favor. The blade is 3CR13MOV, which is, well, it's pretty dodgy. It's on the Chinese alphabet steels, and it's not good for anything other than very, very occasional use. While it sharpens up extremely quickly, it loses that edge almost as quickly. However, for the gentleman's folder type of usage, where the hardest job it'll have is cutting through some sourdough, this is barely acceptable. With the speed safe system functioning correctly, the detent feels really, really strong for some reason, and it's quite loud when it flips out. Not the kind of reserved click you want a gentleman's folder to have. However, with the speed safe spring out, it can indeed just kind of whip open. Let's see if I can demonstrate that here without short stroking it. That's still kind of loud. Still kind of loud. Screw it, I'll just do this. There you go. There is your gentleman's opening. The pocket clip needs a bit more ramp, as I kind of have to hold the pocket clip open to get it into my rather thick jeans easily. There is no Loctite. Next, there is no Loctite on the pivot screw, meaning that that every time you open it and close it, the pivot screw gets a little bit looser, and the blade comes a little bit more out of alignment, like you can see now. It started out the video pretty well aligned, and now it's starting to hug the right side of the knife a bit. It's pretty easy to tighten back up though, so unless you're opening it a zillion times a day, like I do because I'm weird and fidget with my knives like crazy when I'm at home, it's not too much to worry about. Finally, Hotwire is the name of a crafting implement which has literally a hot wire for florists, prop makers, and other sorts of people that need to cut foam regularly. Since the knife does not have a hot wire with which it can cut foam, that's a bit of a silly name, and may even cross the line of false advertising if the buyer didn't do their research. However, for knives, it's a name, I guess? at least it means I can make puns about it. I do like knives I can make puns about. Stuff like the ZT-0458, like, what kind of pun am I supposed to make with that? Am I just supposed to Google the number and have it be you make puns on whatever model of Ferrari or Tool or whatever shares that model number? Sheesh, guys. Now, finally, for the bits that were just left out in the cold. First off is the elephant in the room, the durability of the speed safe system on this particular knife. While Kershaw rates the spring at 10,000 openings, mine broke after less than 200. While I did get a display model, it can't have had 9,800 openings, because that's just silly. Luckily, the knife operates decently without it. I can't just pop it open like that anymore, but I can, in fact, go in and give it a bit of wrist like that, and it'll open up darn near 100% of the time. And again, if you send it into Kershaw with a broken torsion bar spring, they'll replace it for you for free, and that's just brilliant. And to be honest, it's most likely I got a lemon, because none of the other reviewers I've seen of this knife online have had the problem I have that I know of. Next off, yeah, we're still talking about the speed safe spring. It required a very difficult disassembly to get into, because I had to not only take the knife down to the knife and down to the scales, but I had to take the freaking scales off on the presentation side. That was no small feat, because you have to go in and grip the backspacers with needle-nose pliers, then try and not strip out either your either the backspacers or the torque screws with until you get it wangled out. That's really annoying and just frigid about this knife. Continuing the puns because I'm addicted to puns. I would really have liked it if they had managed to key in the backspacers somehow so that wouldn't happen. So, but to be honest, the speed safe system isn't something that, even during a normal maintenance, that you would need to access to lubricate or anything that badly. So, it's a problem for me, but it's probably not going to be a problem for you. Finally, this is a Walmart exclusive. Store exclusives are just bad, because you can't support your local knife shop unless it's exclusive to that local knife shop, and if you don't have a Walmart area, you're screwed if you want to go to the store and try before you buy. Alright, now for just a summation of what I think. If what you need is a cheap gentleman's folder to carry those rare times when you're at a picnic by the river and need something a bit more reserved than your Spyderco Delicas or your Rats, but still has modern conveniences like a flipper tab and a pocket clip, unlike the Opinel No. 8, then this is an excellent choice. However, if you're regularly opening feed bags and breaking down boxes with your knife, or rely on your pocket knife for self-defense and survival, then this knife is not gonna warm your hearts. Alrighty, that's all. Bye-bye now. Shoot.